Ever wanted to become a football agent? The John Viola Academy is an elite training and education program designed by world-class football agents to create world-class football agents. With online courses, personal mentoring and much more, the John Viola Academy provides you with every opportunity needed to achieve your dream career in the beautiful game as a football agent. Head to jvacademy.net/football friends or click the link in our show notes to book a demo call with the team and start your journey today.
Mine tonight, play per over.
Depends. Will your friend, the footballer, be there?
Oh, friend, football friend! Oh, what a superb goal! Stefan Moore, that is extraordinary from Ben Garuccio.
You're listening to episode 8 of Football Friends with Ben Garuccio and Stefan Moore. This week, Bruno's latest belter and MacArthur's Monday Night Madness take the A-League headlines. Here the lads discuss all the action from round 6. Our big topic of the week is Australia's youth development system and what the guys see as lacking for players in their early teens. Before the inner game story of the week returns as the boys touch on some of their earliest lessons and blunders. All that and more coming up on Football Friends.
And welcome back for another episode with Football Friends with Ben and Stef. I'm Stef. Welcome back, Ben. Not just your podcast, it is mine as well, so I thought I'd do the introduction this week. Disappointing result, but how was your week besides the football?
Yeah, it was good. It was good, yeah. The game wasn't the best, obviously. I thought we actually played really well. But yeah, obviously we've lost 5 in a row now, so it's definitely not been the best start. We desperately do need to get back to winning ways. But Wellington are a sort of the benchmark at the moment. You know, they're one of the teams that are right up there. And in the game, I felt like it was, you know, we were doing really, really well, and they were struggling a little bit in the second half to get out. And I thought we had them, you know, sort of where we wanted them. And then, yeah, just unfortunate again with the goal that, you know, in my eyes, I thought on the pitch that it was definitely going to be called offside. And like their players were actually even, like they didn't celebrate the goal. And like one of their players was actually like, come on ref, like hurry up kind of thing. It's obviously offside. And then it got called a goal. So yeah, I was very surprised. But yeah, you know, that's the way footy is sometimes. And yeah, unfortunately, it just seems to be kind of the story that keeps on unfolding with us at the moment. But yeah, you know, I think the performances are there. We got to keep positive, and the wins will come.
Yeah, I guess that's a bit of a strange one. It's so hard to tell with the camera angle. You'd hope that it was, you know, spot on and it's correct and everything. But I think there was a game in Greece, it might have been on the weekend, where the line was drawn and it was just terrible as well. So I think that's what makes it frustrating as a player on the field. Like, if you think it's offside, and then it's onside, obviously it's great for the team that scores, but if you don't, it's disappointing. But anyway, we don't want to talk about it too much. I know you're upset about losing, and we need to be positive going into a new week for you. But I guess that leads us into being positive, is that you don't have to go to Ballarat again, I'm pretty sure. Is that right? The last game in the Rat?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Our next home game is going to be at Amy against Brisbane. So looking forward to getting back to Amy. You know, that's in terms of Melbourne and stadiums you want to be playing at, that's definitely the one that sticks out. So been a lot of good memories made at Amy Park. So yeah, for now, I think that could be it with Ballarat. I think our record there is not too great. But, you know, that's no excuse at the end of the day. You know, you play where the game is held at the end of the day, and you prepare the same way. And at the end of the day, the other team has to fly and then also travel to Ballarat. So there's definitely no excuses coming from that, but it will be good to get back to Amy Park.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's hope that, the younger brother out of the Aloysius gets out on top on that next home game in Melbourne, which we'll touch on, I guess, in the next couple of weeks. Go into more details about that. But yeah, good to hear. There was some other really, I guess, good quality games as well on the Friday night. You had Western Sydney against Brisbane Roar. Delayed start for that one, which was annoying for me. I'd planned my my dinner around what time the game was starting. Carla was like extremely annoyed at me, and then put the game on and see I was delayed by lightning and it might be a while. So I thought, you know what, we'll go down to Henley Beach and we'll get some yochi. So worked out good for Carla and good for me, I guess, to get some yochi in. And then the game itself was quality. Coming back, Brisbane Roar started good again. The pitch wasn't great, but it was a lot better than the week before, and they look really good. Brisbane, Western Sydney showed a lot of character to come back and get 2-2. I think either team could have won it. You've got the offside goal for Brisbane Roar. I think Cahill had a really good chance as well for Brisbane off I think it was another set piece potentially or a cross. So it's it could have went either way, but both those teams I reckon, in my opinion, going to be right up there for top 4, top 6 anyway. So what were your thoughts on that game? I'm assuming you're watching that one, not doing too much the night before your game.
Yeah, no, I saw that game, and look, for me, I've just been super impressed by Brisbane at home. For me, when they've played at Suncorp this year, they just look incredible. Like they look like they've got a different energy, to be honest, when they're playing there. I think, we spoke to Zach last week, and he's said how receptive the club has been, and the players especially, about moving back and getting those kind of minimum standards that they deserve. And it's showing, because honestly, their energy in the games that they've played at Suncorp so far, like I noticed it massively against Sydney FC when they played Sydney FC, but even the way they started that game, I honestly couldn't see Western Sydney actually getting back into that game. And then you obviously had, Marcelo go down, and then Clisby went down after him, and he was obviously able to stay on. But I thought, I can't see them getting back into it. But then that's credit to Western Sydney again, because, they were under it for a bit in that game, and they managed to find a way to get themselves back into it. And it was, a good goal by Milo just after half time. And then, they're back in the game. It's 2-1, and Brisbane probably could have still gone ahead again and put it out of sight, but they didn't take those opportunities. Nicola had like a really, really good one where he cut in and sent Lawrence Thomas to the ground, and then just, sort of got unlucky, got blocked off the line. And that's the way the cookie crumbles. You don't take those chances, and then you end up, dropping 2 points, I would say, for Brisbane. But if you're a Western Sydney player or fan, then you're buzzing coming out of that game, because that's a tough trip.
Yeah, no, exactly. And for me, they obviously got a rocket at high. Football's so funny, I think, and we'll speak about Ange with City as well, but it's so strange where, in the first half, one team looks so good and the players look unbelievable, and the other team look shit, to be honest. Like, they look like they just can't get into the game. You go in at half time, and sometimes it's, sometimes it is a structural thing. It's a small tactical tweak from the coach, which, they didn't prepare for, because, Brisbane set up differently against Western Sydney, for example, than what they're expecting. But, you come out in the second half and it's like two different teams again. Like Western Sydney, all of a sudden they score within, 45 seconds, and they look like they've got the energy and the buzz. So I'm sure Rudin gave them a rocket as well. But it's just, football is such a funny game with that momentum, and, you start well. And that's why they always say, you want to go out there, your first pass, your first tackle, whatever you do first, you want it to be good and positive, because it sets the tone, not just for you individually, but I feel like for the rest of your teammates as well. So it's something that, like you touched on, Brisbane obviously had a massive emphasis on that in all the games at the Suncorp anyway. And then Western Sydney as well, they've done that I think twice now. They came back from Newcastle away as well. So they've showed a lot of character, and I really like Milanovic. I'm not going to call him Milo because I don't know him, but he's a good player. I can't believe he played a lot at Western United. I'm surprised they let him go, because he, looks like a top player, like can play as like a number 8, number 10, I reckon, as he gets a bit older. But at the moment, playing as like a left midfielder, he's strong, he's quick, he can dribble players, but he's got like an eye for goal as well. So, he's someone I reckon to watch, for the future. I don't know how young he is, but he's got a lot of potential, and to be playing well in Western Sydney, which is a big club, is very, I guess very good for him, to hopefully go on and eventually get a move overseas, which I'm sure is what he's aiming for.
Yeah, no, he's always had that potential. I think even when he first came to Western United, I wasn't there, but everyone did speak really, really highly of him and the raw talent that he had. And I suppose just over the last couple of seasons, he started to sort of fine tune that and actually, add to his craft and learn what it's like to actually start games. And he was knocking on the door here at Western United. He decided to make the move. He is a Western Sydney boy. When you're sort of, local kind of club comes calling, it is hard to probably say no. And obviously he'd worked with Rudin in the past, so it made sense for him. He ended up going. Look, I'm glad it's worked out for him because he's a good kid. He's got, incredible talent. He's a big boy. He's only going to get stronger, and he's going to add that sort of physical sense as well because he's a bit of a twig and he needs to get in the gym a little bit more. But he's doing really well. And he's a big boy. He's a unit. Yeah. Oh, he's a unit, but yeah, he's got a bit twig arms. But he's a footballer at the end of the day. He's not a bodybuilder, but yeah, he is very, very strong. He's tall. He can dribble the ball. He's like that big kind of midfielder, like a Dembele or I don't want to say Zidane because that's probably going a bit far, but
Jesus
that
Christ.
kind of player that is the big kind of taller midfielder, but can also like a Rogic, that kind of player. So
like a Kai
he's got a
Havertz.
sweet left. Nothing like a Kai Havertz.
No, he looks good. He looks good, and I think playing different positions, like we were the same, and it's probably good timing we spoke about him because when we first started playing, which we'll touch on in our topic of the week, which is youth development. When you first come into the league, you don't choose what position you play. Obviously, in the youth team you're playing your preferred position, but when you're playing in the A-League games for the first team, you might just play a different position because that's where they need you. And as a midfielder, it's very hard to break in. You played it as a winger, and that's where you started, then got moved to a fullback because you couldn't quite hack it as a winger. And I was playing on the wing. As when I first started coming through, I played a little bit in the midfield, but majority of the time I was playing as a winger, and I don't have any pace, so it was never going to work out. Or more of an inverted winger, but it's same for him. You start somewhere, and it's actually good because you learn different skills, and I think also pressing in different ways. If you're always used to being a midfielder, you don't really think about the other positions. So the more positions you can play, I think it does help you. But then, we'll touch on that a little bit later. And lightning struck twice the next day. Sydney FC against Perth Glory. So the weather's coming down the east coast from Brisbane all the way down to Sydney, and that game was delayed even longer. I actually didn't watch too much of it live because of the delays, and it was a bit of a disaster. They obviously weren't sure when it was going to happen, and to play a game for a certain amount of time then get suspended, it's a difficult one, isn't it? To actually mentally, but also physically, because your body cools down, and then you got to get back up for it. So it was a bit of a strange one, and credit to Sydney FC for getting the win. But it's a strange game to be a part of, don't you think?
Yeah, no, that's weird. I was actually thinking about it today when I was at training. I was like, fucking hell, what would they have been doing at half time? Would they have had to do it? They probably did a whole nother activation and warm up in the rooms. And then when they went out there, they probably would have done a little bit before the second half started because that I've never played in a game like that, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, it's a bit strange because how do you stay switched on? Because you're prepared for a game and you're mentally in the game. And I hate half time as it is. I just want to come in, get a drink, coach talks, go straight back out because I hate it and I never know what to do. But if you're in there for that long, what are you doing? Are you going on your phone? Because I feel like I would still be in game mode. I'm I can't fucking check my phone. There's probably people messaging me. I'm not going to start replying to people. Yeah, just in the rooms half time, lightning strike, can't play.
Yeah. No, it's I can't even remember now what it was. It was a good hour or maybe close to 2 hours, to be honest. It's not, even something that you can prepare for because they probably couldn't have given you the time. They would have said, listen, we're going to give it 30 minutes because of what the radar's saying. And then in 30 more minutes time, they would have said, oh, we'll give it probably a bit more time. So fair play to the fans as well for sticking around. That's a late night when you don't have much action. But it's something like you said, as a player, to stay switched on, what do you do? Do you then start eating something as well to kind of get the energy back? And you don't want to eat too much, but you've probably then eaten 3 hours before the game. So if it could be 5 hours since you've eaten. It's a strange one. Maybe we'll need to get someone from Sydney FC or Perth Glory on next week, and we can actually find out what they did and let all the fans know. But yeah, good result for Sydney FC. They're
Yeah.
they're kind of back, I guess you would say, since Ufi's come in. That's 2 wins and a draw. Well, no, they lost the derby, sorry, but a decent enough performance. So 2 wins and a loss, but they've scored a lot of goals, which is what they were struggling with. What's that? 8 goals in 3 games now. So we'll see if they can keep up that form moving forward. And then we go on to Sunday's games, where we had first up Central Coast against Victory. And I think there's only one thing you really want to talk about in that game, and that's Bruno Fornaroli's goal. I text you at the time saying, like, did you see that? And you've replied straight away, knowing exactly, obviously, what I'm talking about, because that's what you do in training and when you're taking the piss. Like, you've just nutmegged someone, so you think, I'll just shoot from here almost. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's goal of the season. I don't care. I'm calling it now. There's not going to be a better goal than that. There's not going to be a better goal than that unless someone, I don't know, if some left back scores a scorpion kick or something. I'm not sure. But
that left back doesn't score goals every 6 years.
I messaged him after the game going, fucking hell, Hamano, like, that's unbelievable. And he said, yeah, like, you know, he was buzzing with it or whatever. And I said, I love the nutmeg. And he goes, man, that was my favourite part. Because he loves that. He loves that nutmeg. He loves feeling the player behind him, using his body. And then he's just done the cheeky, like, with his studs as well through the legs. And then, everything else is, honestly, that goal had everything.
Yeah. And he's even like slipped over as his shot, which it was actually a weird technique. Like he didn't actually like drive it with his laces. It was almost like kind of like that half driven, half curl, but it was just perfect. Like maybe if it was a taller keeper, to be honest, they saved that potentially. Not Vukovic is obviously not 6'5", so he doesn't have that wingspan. But like you can't be expecting anyone to save that really. And if you're the player and the keeper saves that, you're fucking cooking. Like if you do that and the keeper gets a fingertip on it and tips it over, like you're thinking, well, you've just ruined this moment. So he's on fire. Potential bolter for the Asian Cup. I know he's older and everybody wants to talk about getting young players through, but if he keeps scoring over the next 4 or 5 games, Barella's gone down and probably missing the Asian Cup. He's a different type of striker, and if you're playing some of the lower Asian teams when they sit in, for me, he's someone I loved playing with when we were at Melbourne City, because I'm not going to dribble players, so I want to link up with people. And he was the perfect striker for that, because all he wanted to do is, like you said, pin his centre back and link up. And he was the same. He can dribble. He can actually dribble really well, but he's got no pace. So he wants to feel him. He wants to touch him, and he's so smart with his body. And that's something we don't get taught. I never really got taught that when I was a youngster, about like using your body well like that. And you see all the South Americans, they're so smart. They're so like, it's all right. He goes down a bit easy sometimes as well. And he maybe over the years has gotten less and less free kicks because the referees are onto it. But they're just so smart with knowing when they get the contact, when to go down, or when they get the contact, when to roll the player. And it's a skill, because nobody else, like if we could do it, we would be doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, no, he's so smart. I just remember, that first year, no one was ready for it. And the way he just used to back in. And I remember he always used to back in until he sort of got into the 18-yard box, because he knew once he was in the 18-yard box, he was close enough to shoot. Because, to be fair, over the last couple of years, he's actually scored a few goals from outside the box, but he didn't score many goals from kind of outside the box. And he knew once he was in the 18-yard box, the defenders couldn't touch him anymore because it was going to be a penalty.
Yeah.
So he's very smart in that sense. He's just a smart footballer at the end of the day. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's in that squad. If he keeps going like this, who's better right now in Australia?
Yeah.
In the A-League right now, he's been the standout striker so far. You have to say it. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting one. And to be fair, no one's probably going to talk about it because of Bruno Fornaroli's goal, but I thought Valupale's goal was fucking class as well.
Yeah, he sat, who was it, Torres, I think, on his ass, and like as a winger or whatever, you're coming back, you're trying to do the right thing, and you get chopped from Valupale, and you don't just trip, but like he full on fell on his ass, and then he puts it in as well, and you just think, Jesus Christ, like it's and that's something that I think they spoke about. They needed more goals from from their other attacking players. It can't be just Bruno. I think everyone else was on only one goal, or some of their other attacking players hadn't even scored yet. So good for him. And we spoke about him. I think he's their most dangerous winger. He's very direct. And when you add those goals and assists to your game, you go to that next level. So good signs for victory. And even for Central Coast, they came 1-0 up, but came back, showed a bit of fight, which was positive. So hopefully they keep building with their new coach. And with the AFC Cup, it's tough, but the league's still so even. Everybody's still in contention. And then in the next game, City against the Jets. Jets finally got to play back at Hunter Stadium, and the pitch again didn't look too great. A few players slipping all over the place, but City just looked too good. And I guess when you're comparing the squads as well, it's anyone can beat anyone, but City do still have a lot of that quality. And the young boy on debut, I thought took that chance. It was a great ball in, but he's still got to put it away. And then McLaren as well hadn't probably, can't even remember if he'd gone 1 or 2 games without a goal, but that's a drought for him. So he's decided to let everybody know he's still in contention for the Golden Boot, which I'm sure him and Bruno will be fighting that out. So City are kind of still hanging in there. I think they'll grow as the year goes on. They've got a few injuries, but Lecky's back and he's probably at his best. I think he's probably the best player in the competition. I don't know what your thoughts are on that one.
Yeah, well, our boy Joe Lolly, we tipped him for the Johnny Warren early before the season started. He's kind of back. I'm thinking, I've got him in my A-League fantasy and he's saving me at the moment. So, he's doing well. But yeah, Lecky when he's fully fit. Look, you saw what he did at the World Cup. That's a player that's come back from playing overseas, coming back to Australia, and he's producing like that on the world stage. So, yeah, he's a massive player for them. And obviously losing Naboo, that's kind of your other winger. They lost Tilio as well from last season. So, yeah, different wingers. So when you have obviously Lecky out as well, then you're going without. So I think they've done well, with the players out, that they've, the young boy, he's come in, he played well and he scored. So you're happy with that. But yeah, it's a good win for City at the end of the day. They haven't started the way they wanted to, but that's a good character building win, especially away from home, because no game's easy in the A-League. Doesn't matter. You can talk about squads, you can talk about teams and how they're going. There's not one easy game in this league.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then the strange one, the Monday night game, because the Bulls had to play their home fixture away from home in Thailand because of the team from Myanmar not getting visas, I think it was. So a bit of a strange one. But it was probably the game of the round, like in terms of obviously 4-3. So excitement. Hopefully a lot of people tuned in for it because it was a good one to watch, and goes to show again, Adelaide, they can score a lot of goals, but they the way they play, they're going to concede chances, and that's obviously something that they're going to keep working on, because there's no point scoring 3 if you're conceding 4 at the end of the day. Like I'm sure Cole and the coaching staff, like, yes, they want to play open football, but they don't want to be conceding as many chances as they are. And until that third goal went in, Adelaide actually had chances to kind of bury them, and that's again that momentum in football. If you don't score, that fourth to kind of put them away, or you don't kind of control the game enough, like teams go on the break. I think it was from a corner. On the break, De Silva's sent Jermaine, was it wide? He's taken a bad touch. He's got a bit lucky, fallen into hole when he's put it away. And then they score from a set piece again straight after that. A very well worked set piece, and De Villa's put it away nicely. But it's just football changes so quick. You're thinking, all right, this is 3 points away. Monday night, Adelaide, I think, would have been sitting maybe second then, and it would have been a great position for them to be in. And then all of a sudden, in the space of 5 minutes, you're down by a goal. So it's exciting. It's good for the league, and the Bulls. They them and the Knicks are probably the 2 surprise packets where nobody was really tipping them at the start of the year, but makes it interesting. Makes the I guess everybody be excited to know every game. Anyone can beat anyone. So let's see what happens this week. I'm back in Adelaide still, so I'll be heading down on Sunday to watch the Reds against Brisbane Roar. So baby, I think will be born maybe tonight or tomorrow. But I've said to Carla, that's that game I need to go to, and she's like, I'll come as well. I said, I don't think you'll be coming with a baby that's 4 days old.
So your first night off already? Your first of many nights off as a dad, huh?
Well, it's a 2:30 kickoff, so it's probably good. It's good for her. She can, hopefully settle the baby well enough, and I'll just be at the game, maybe in the chairman's lounge, enjoying myself, and then come home, and I'll come home and I'll do what I need to do. I don't think I can do much at the start anyway, so I'll be changing nappies and cleaning up and whatever else it is. So no, it's all good, but excited. Actually, really excited to get back down to Coopers as a fan. I drive past it most days when I'm going into the city, and it's the best stadium. They're like, especially with the new upgrades, it's so good. They had a concert there last week, so I hope that didn't ruin the grass. But it's such a good stadium, and to watch football, it's something I think every club moving forward. We've spoken about it before, but clubs like yourself with Western United, even City. I saw the images of Melbourne City's training ground for their women's, where they're going to play at 5,000 seater. I know it's probably not possible, but if they spent that bit extra money and get that to 7.5 or 10,000 and kind of enclose it and do what you need to do to make it look good, this is the way forward for A-League teams, because if you do that, you control who plays on your pitch, you're making all the revenue. So in the long run, you're going to be financially in a much better position, because not everybody's lucky enough to have a Cooper Stadium where I don't even know how many concerts. There's only probably 2 or 3 they do a year there maximum.
No, there's not many.
So, it's actually, it's owned by the government, the Adelaide Entertainment Group, but Adelaide United's the only tenant. Like nobody plays there. None of the state teams play there, or, they used to do when we were younger, the Federation games, the Cup finals there, but now that's all played at the State Centre of Excellence. So it's perfect for Adelaide, because they don't actually have to build their own stadium, and they've got this, carpet of a surface, fit for purpose football stadium. So, all right, that's enough. That's enough of the wrap up for the week. And now we go into our topic, which we have youth development. I think something that was spoken about in our initial discussions on Twitter from people was they want to hear about second division. We've spoken about that. They want to hear about expansion, and they want to hear about youth development. We're both, two young boys coming from Adelaide, growing up in the western suburbs. So anyone from Adelaide knows how small Adelaide is, but we both, grew up. I was in West Beach, you were in, Fulham Gardens. So we had different pathways, but we ended up actually at the exact same point at about 15, 16. So you could talk to us, Ben, about your first couple of years when you were 4 or 5, you were, going playing up an age group for a different club than what was in your local area.
Yeah, I was driving. I had no idea at the time where I was going, but my parents took me out to Parra Hills, which is about, 40 minutes, maybe 30, 40 minutes away, that's like an eternity in Adelaide. And that was the only club that had a under 6s, I think it was at that time. I was 4 years old. I just wanted to play. So my parents brought me there. I think I had a pair of boots. I didn't have any shinnies. I had to borrow shinnies from the club rooms. They were like, listen, the season's already started. Like, you missed the trials. And they were like, can you just give him a go? I was like, listen, we'll give him a game. I think we won 6-0 and I scored 5 goals. They said, we'll take him. So that was...
we'll sign him up, yeah?
Yeah. They were like, yeah, he can come. Just bring him to training every Tuesday night or whatever it was. So that was my first ever experience, like, playing a game of football. Like, my first ever experience. It sticks with me so fondly, because that was my first ever experience, and they had to drive me all the way out there. And I remember, we'd be in the car once or twice a week, whatever it was back then, and used to have to go out to training. But as it was back then, and I think football has come a long way in terms of junior grassroots football, I was changing clubs every 1 or 2 years, because the next year at that club they weren't doing an under 7s. So I had to move to another club to play for an under 7s. And then the next club wasn't doing an under 8s that year because they didn't have enough players or coaches or whatever. So,
or was it that you were getting kicked out of the clubs?
Yeah, maybe it was either that. Yeah, maybe they did have an under 7s, but they just didn't want me to play in it. But
they said, this guy's too angry.
Yeah, I was an angry kid. I didn't like losing. I still don't like losing now, but I'm a little bit better now than before. But I've always been the competitive type, probably too competitive and a bit of a sore loser at times, but that's just the passion, I suppose, that you have naturally, and it's probably what's helped me in my career. But yeah, I was chopping and changing, going all over the place, and you know how it is. When you're a kid, you're just playing because you love the sport. So I went around, played for quite a few different clubs in Adelaide, and then ended up at Adelaide City with you. And it was, me, you, Brucey Kamau was in that team as well. So we had a decent team. We had a lot of other players that didn't go on to play professionally, but were still very, very good players, and probably could have played in state teams and NTCs with them. And then that's when it kind of starts to get a little bit serious, around that 13, 14, you go from just playing for fun, playing with your mates, to all of a sudden there's talent identification, and you're making state teams and, potential NTCs and things like that.
On the like younger years, because now I speak to some parents. I was actually speaking to someone the other night. How often were you training? Like, do you remember like when it was like the younger age groups, and then you got a little bit older? It was still 2 nights a week, right? Until you got into the state team.
Yeah, 2 nights a week. 2 nights a week. And look, it has come a long way in terms of, there are a lot more clubs, and it's more built up now because, that's just natural. A club is around for a longer amount of time. They've got, maybe better infrastructure. There's been, more investment into the club. So there's, they can offer more things. So that's natural. But in my personal opinion, and this is probably jumping the gun and going a little bit down the track with this chat, but that's probably one of the biggest problems that we have with football in this country, is that from those key ages, from 5 years old to 12, 13 years old, we're just not training enough. We're just not touching the ball enough. So unless you're going in your backyard or going to the park every single day, which when you're 5 years old, you can't do that. When you get to 12, 13, yes, maybe, but you've still lost 6 or 7 years from the ages of 5 until that age, where in Brazil and countries like that, I speak to Danny Pena on my team, and I love talking about this stuff, because why can they develop these world-class players, and so many of them, that even the ones that are playing in 3rd division over there are probably technically 10 times better than me and you. And that's because from that young age, they're getting... Yeah. Definitely you. But honestly, it's a serious chat, because like there's not enough good quality training at that age. So instead of you training, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then playing a game on the weekend, we're training maybe just, Monday and Wednesday. So what's happening all the other days? Because when you're that age, you're like a sponge. So, obviously we're still creating good players, and don't get me wrong, there is technically good players. There's some players that are naturally a lot technically gifted than other players. Some players work for it a lot more, but I think that's somewhere where we need to get so much better in this country, because those, for me, are the key ages. By the time you get to 15, 16, it's too late. You go over to Europe, they're miles ahead of us.
Yeah. You said you weren't going to jump the gun, but you've completely jumped the gun. So I'll go into mine now. But interesting, you started playing at 5, 6, or a bit younger, whatever it was, to play for Para Hills, and that was probably, your dad or mum saw a bit of talent, and you had older siblings, so probably playing around with them, and your parents were probably thinking, well, Matt and Joe, they weren't nowhere near this level when they were that young, so maybe Ben's actually got a bit of talent. So let's put in the investment here. We'll clock up the K's on the car. We'll drive out to Para Hills, and it will return in the future, which it has. But any parent would do that for their child, of course. But for me, I was 5 years old the first time I can't remember before that, to be honest. Maybe I was kicking the ball in the backyard, of course. But, I played school football, school soccer, and we trained. It was your cousin, actually, Fabian's mum, that I can remember. She was one of the coaches at one point. And we used to train, I reckon it was like maybe 45 minutes once a week for 15 weeks in that tournament at Northwest. We'd play a game for 30 minutes, I think it was, and Tony Fideli would take the clinics before. So you get a little like 20-minute session in before your game with 100 other kids. And that was it until I was 10 years old. So like I look back at it now, and I played AFL, and I loved AFL. So I was playing club AFL, but club AFL, you only trained once a week as well. And then in the others, I played cricket, tennis, all these other things. Go on, what are you going to say?
That was young. Well, so what? You were playing AFL when you were 8 years old?
I was playing for the Tigers.
For the Tigers?
No, I was playing for the Henley.
You should have stuck to that.
I was playing for the Henley Sharks, and I'll tell you what, I was actually pretty good. I'm not going to lie, I reckon I could have made it in AFL. The size, although I ran into an AFL player today from Essendon, I think it was Will Will Snelling, I think it was, and he's my height. So I thought, you know what, if he could make it, I definitely could have made it.
Not too late.
It's not too late to do a code switch like Israel Folau and Carmichael Hunt. $1 million a year, I'll do it. No worries. But I think looking back, playing other sports helped me massively. But at the same time, those years, like you said, that was 5 till 10 before I changed and played club football. I was training once a week for 15 weeks. Yeah, I played in the backyard, like you said. But, you know, that structure, and I was probably fortunate that I watched a little bit of football, only Wednesday mornings. We didn't have Foxtel, so it was just Wednesday morning, Thursday morning Champions League every second week. But I think I actually really learned a lot from watching those players. Like, I was someone that, without even realizing it, was taking it in, and that's probably where I learned my technique, because my dad didn't play football. He played AFL when he came over here from Germany as well. So I didn't really have anyone to teach me, but for whatever reason, I was not too bad. I was always really good in school, and then I made the change because my dad forced me to. And then we were training twice a week with Adelaide City, and I didn't make the state team. Like, you were in the state team. Brucey Kamau was in the state team. We had like 4 others at Adelaide City at the time in the state team, and I wasn't good enough apparently to make the state team. And whether that's right or wrong, that's a completely different story. Everybody, you know, even in professional football, some players from one coach, you know, they think they're God, and then the next coach thinks they're not good enough to start or be in the squad. So it's not the state team coach's faults, but I think it is the process of it and understanding like who are the best players and probably giving them more opportunities, which they do now with the SAP programs with the state. The identification is a bit better. But think about that, from age 5 through to about 14 was when it got serious, when we both were in Sassy then. You know, you trained an extra night a week with the state team. So that was better because you're in a good environment. But, you know, you look at the kids that are in, like you said, Brazil, they probably, if they're not in academies, they're training in the streets, like without realizing, and that's their culture. But in Europe, you know, those kids are training probably 4 to 5 times a week minimum, but not just training. They're getting great coaches, ex-players that are good coaches at the best facilities, and they're surrounded by the best players. So imagine how much better you could have become because you're getting pushed constantly. Like, I look at it and I think, you know what? Maybe I would have been playing for Barcelona. But it didn't happen. And now I'm just
honestly,
in
like, it is, and you hear stories of those younger kids that go over with maybe their families when they are actually like really super young, like, you know, 8, 9, 10 years old, and they go over and they go into the programs, and you just think, like, you know, you look at your players like your Robertsons now that's at Portsmouth. I forget the
Ocon's
name
boys?
of the... Yeah,
Ocon's
Ocon's boys.
and Skoko. Oh, it'd be great. Actually, maybe we should try and get Paolo on in a future one, because it'd be interesting to know, why did he take his boys over there? I think they're all
because he knows
really good.
He knows he went through it. He went through it overseas, and a lot of those guys from, you know, the generation before us, the ones that are all coaching now, your Aloises and those kind of players in that age group, they all went over at such a young age. Now, I just think that those years, any time from 5 to, you know, 11, 12, that they are opportunities that are missed, and you can never get that time back. You'll never ever get that time back of just learning your craft. And at the end of the day, if you kick 1 million balls by that age compared to kicking 200,000, you're going to be a lot better at your craft if you've kicked that many balls. And it's just, you know, my dad used to tell me, go outside, just kick against the wall, left and right foot. I didn't listen to him because I never used my right foot. And now look at me, I'm fucking terrible. I just get on the bus with my right foot. So
yeah,
but that is, like, you know, it's funny and it's, you can laugh about it, but it is true. Like, and, you know, I was someone that I always loved football. I don't know what it was. I was the same as you. None of my family played football. I used to wake up every Sunday morning and watch SBS. It was Les Murray on there. I used to watch the Serie A on all the highlights. I remember it so clearly that I used to watch the football show. I used to watch Adelaide City, the VHS tapes, Adelaide City versus Melbourne Knights in NSL finals. I used to watch them back. They probably had 2 VHS tapes there. I used to watch them like every weekend. I would watch the game. I just loved it. So yeah, but back onto topic, that they are years missed, and I think that's, as football grows in this country, is a massive probably thing that we need to focus on and really hone in on so that we're actually developing the next crop of superstars instead of just hoping that, a wonder kid comes along every, once in a while.
Exactly. And I guess now you've got your NPL teams, which they're a bit more regulated and they do train, they've got these SAP programs, but then you've got the other thing where it costs a lot of money. And because it costs more money, it's because the coaches that they're all getting a C license coaches, whether that means they're good or not, it's still someone's dad that's went and just done the license. It's better than, someone that has no idea, of course. And then you're getting technical directors, you got to pay them. So that's why these things are all increasing, because if you want, you want that, you go to Europe. These clubs can lose millions of dollars with their academy because they're making other money in other ways. Where in Australia, we don't actually have that. So then the cost falls on the parents, which is a really hard thing as well. And if you're not going to get the government support, which is something in our sport that we seem to not get with, whether it's junior participation, whether it's national team funding, whether it's, infrastructure, we seem to just get nothing from the governments in comparison to other sports. So, there needs to be ways. And I think the A-League clubs going forward, they've all got the academies, or most of them have got the academies starting from a younger age group now, which is great. But, they need to go all the way down because it's a cost, of course, but then you're controlling. If you're playing for Western United at 7, 8 years old, you're then controlling what the player's learning technically, what they're getting taught, surrounding them with the best players. And they see that clear pathway to the top, which is where it needs to get to. And then with the second division, the same thing. That's the beauty of those teams coming into a second division. They've actually already got the juniors. So I think it's only going to get better. And you look at the young players now coming through. Are they better than what we were? I don't think they're actually better than what we were. I think there's more of them at a good level compared to when we were younger. There was probably only, 6 or 7 in the league that were good enough to play. And the rest were way off it. When now you're looking at 2 or 3 from each team are probably good enough to play. So that's the benefits of the academies. But, we still need to build on that. And the number one thing I always say to parents, heaps of parents, well, I'm sure it's the same for you, will always ask me, what can my child do? Do we need to go overseas? And that's still a lottery if you go over there, whether you get a good team or not, and if your kid can handle it. It's a massive move. But for me, the biggest thing is what they do when they're actually away from training. Because even if you do train 5 nights a week, when you're a kid, you've got endless amounts of energy. Like your legs get sore. You sit down for 5 minutes, then you're like, I'm good to go again. And what they do away from it, and I know parents will hate it, but the more touches on the ball, like you said on it earlier, the better. If you're sitting down playing PlayStation, you can have a ball at your feet and moving it between your feet. Or if you're in the house, I'm sure you were the same, getting yelled at from your parents, like dribbling the ball around the house. I know it's not like game tempo, but that trains your brain, that cognitive learning from a young age. You're getting more touches on the ball. And I think that's probably the most important thing. What you do away from your team environment is just as important. And if you don't have that in the culture, like in Brazil or in Europe or all the other South American countries, the kid needs to just want to do that. And on Japan, because I've been there now for a couple of years, they've trained, for probably the last 10 years or maybe longer in high school. They're training 6 days a week. They're, for 2 hours or something, from young ages. So they've got a different system there where it's a lot cheaper to do. But theirs is just a volume game, I think. They've got so many players that probably burn out or that aren't good enough that get nowhere near it. But their average level is so much higher because they all train so much. I think they play like 50 weeks of the year. They give them maybe 2 weeks off. And on a Saturday, they do a carnival the whole day. Where in Australia, parents want, they want to go to the pub, or they want to go to the park, or they want to go to the beach. They want to do other events. Where in Japan, like all they do is just sit there on a Saturday and watch these kids play games, and they train 6 days a week. And I'm thinking in my head, well, it's no surprise that they're becoming so good because the level of the average player is so much higher. So that pushes the best players, and they're getting more touches on the ball. So that's something that it's not an overnight change, but yeah.
Do you think part of the problem here in Australia is that we do live in a very privileged and good country, and that if you don't make it as a professional footballer, it's fine because we still live a good life? Whereas in some of these countries, let's say like a Brazil, now a lot of these players that do make it big, they speak all the time about, I wanted to make it to help my family. I wanted to do it to help my family. I wanted to do this. Now, I didn't have any incentive, but from the second that I was not born, but knew what football was and that I loved it so much, that was the only thing I ever wanted to do. I wanted to be a footballer. And, you know, there's probably thousands of kids out there that say that. For me, I was lucky enough that it actually came to fruition. But for me, it feels like in our country, in Australia, that we do live a very good life, you know, that we've got a lot here in this country. And it's a beautiful place to live. It's a beautiful country. And these other countries that maybe don't have as much as us, they want it so much more than us. Do you agree?
Yeah, firsthand from seeing it in Japan, these kids, you don't know what you don't know, and you get, you know, if you get brought up in Australia, you just assume probably everywhere else is like Australia. So, you know, you take it for granted. Like, I've come back now these last 2 weeks, and Australia is a holiday. It's a full-time holiday here where, you know, especially in summer, the weather's getting good. You can go down to the beaches. Beaches are free. You know, the roads, it's all safe. You go to, you know, the end of your street or somewhere walking distance, there's an amazing park to go and play at. Like, why are kids thinking I need to do this to, you know, help my family, or I need to do this because it's either I join a gang or I become a footballer? Or in Japan, you either work like an average job, getting paid average money and overworked, or I just do the same work rate, but I become a footballer and I'm a superstar. Like, it's chalk and cheese. We're in Australia. I genuinely, I'm actually a bit fearful for, like, not just football, but for, I think, all sports. Like, because sport doesn't matter. You can have the best facilities, you can have the best of everything, but sport still comes down to how much does someone want it and how many hours have they put in over their years and that dedication to their craft. And Australia's just going to get lower and lower. We'll still get the odd kid that comes through, I think, but, you know, like, it's such a different environment in Brazil, in Japan, because these kids, like, one of the guys, I think I've said it before, that's playing in NEC Nijmegen now, which is, I've got my top for NEC Nijmegen just there. I played my 3 games for them, I think it was. So that's not dirty at all. He's just signed for NEC, but before he came to Fagiano when he was 18, he'd never played on grass. Like, he'd never trained on grass properly. He was training on dirt fields, like proper dirt fields. But it's not like it's a complaint. It's like, oh, we're just on dirt fields today. And in Australia, we can't do sessions because it's raining. So, like, this whole, like you touched on, it's a lot more to it. We can still be better. And of course we can, because we do have these facilities and we do have good coaches. I think we've got better coaches than what people realize as well. But it comes down to the desire, and how do kids learn this desire now? It's from parents.
That's, you know? Yeah. That's more so what I'm saying. I'm not trying to like group, you know, Australia as, you know, that you know, we live in paradise and every single person has a perfect life here, so they don't want it. It's not that. It's saying more so, where do they get this desire from? Where do they learn about this? Because some kids will be different to others. Like, from the moment I kicked a soccer ball, I was super competitive. I had to win everything. Now, I don't know why. I just had that. I don't know if it was my upbringing from having older siblings and they were always beating me at stuff. Who knows what it was? But there will be kids that have certain desires, but there also will be kids that have amazing talent, but maybe don't have that desire. And they don't have the same desire as someone who maybe hasn't had it as easy and wants to make it more than anything. Because I guarantee you, more often than not, that the kid with less talent that wants to work hard will make it before the one with talent that wants to do nothing and sit on his ass.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? We can actually do, we'll see how long the podcast, I guess, goes for, how many years, but we'll do a test trial with my kid once it comes out. We'll get a training once a day from the age of 2, and we'll see how good we can get him or her.
Left foot, right foot.
And we'll just use
this
it
kid's
as a
gonna be a
test
robot.
experiment. Carla will be thinking like, this is not okay. But I'll be saying, listen, Football Friends podcast, we want to do this experiment. So Australian football will thank us in years to come. But no, it's something that we'll keep talking on, and I'm sure we'll get lots of questions from this and different people asking things. We can go into more depth of, you know, once we did get into the state teams, the AIS, because that's, I don't include that as your real youth junior development. I think, you know what you said, 5 to about 14, 15. And then once you get to 15, I think it changes. You know, you're not obviously an experienced player all of a sudden, and you're not in the adult football, but you're kind of at that next stage, and we'll talk about that next time. But let's
quickly before we cut it off, like, we'd love to hear from you guys to see what your kind of ideal youth setup would look like in this country, because, you know, we find it super interesting, and these are just our thoughts. Like, personally for me, as you said, the NSD is going to be perfect because those teams like South Melbourne, they've already got the template there. It's already what they're doing. So that's perfect. And how good for a 4 or 5-year-old kid to rock up to South Melbourne training and go, all right, I want to be there one day. And then you go and watch them on the weekend. That is like building culture and building something to strive for. And I think the A-League clubs, like we sort of said, if they can get that, have it all the way down, and then they're getting coached a certain way and see that funnel the whole way through, that is the ideal setup with good coaching and better coaching and learning about, what it means to play for Adelaide United or Western United or Melbourne Victory or whatever team you are at. But that's probably our kind of ideal kind of pathway for football in this country. And I suppose we'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
And it needs to be full year round. For me, it needs to be like maybe not 52 weeks of the year. And you can play other sports if you want to, but we have to play more games. Like we play 20 games in, when you're a young player, a year, whatever it is. But, in Japan, they're playing probably like 70, 80 games. They're playing a couple games a week. So again, we'll talk more about it in another episode, but we'll leave it there and get into our story of the week or stories of the week from when we were young players coming into the system, thinking we knew what we were doing, but we really had no idea.
This is the Inner Game Story of the Week. This segment is brought to you by the Inner Game Journals, started by none other than our co-host Stefan Moore. The Athlete Performance Journals were created to help athletes of all abilities become more self-aware through goal setting and reflection. On or off the field, the mental side of the game is so crucial to help you feel and perform at your best. Head over to www.theinnergamejournals.com and use code FOOTBALLFRIENDS to get 15% off all products. If you're a club, school or academy, you're in luck. Stefan also runs workshops and he's just released the app version, which will allow you to give direct feedback to players. Download the app for free today. Search The Inner Game on the App Store.
Do you want to take it away? This is kind of, I suppose it's both of our stories, but at the end of the day, we've spoken there and we're staying on the theme of kind of youth development. And this was youth development for us because it was our first time in a professional environment, and we thought we were professional at the time. We both thought we were quite professional and we did the right things compared to maybe other people that were our age. And we really had fucking no idea, did we, Steph?
Yeah, I think we did a lot right, but then just small things. And, sometimes when you're a young player, how you're perceived, first impressions are everything, to be honest. And I guess that goes on to our first little one when we rock up to Melbourne Heart. When we were away at the AIS, we both, got our nipples pierced. We got hammered by the older boys then, but we thought, we don't care about these guys. But when we rocked up to Melbourne Heart and we're like in the ice bath, and I was already a little bit like, self-conscious about it. Like, I don't really want them to see. But it was like, well, we shower naked now. Like you're in a group. What are you going to do? Just put your hands over your nipples. Like, so as soon as they've seen that, they've hammered us. And then we were both constantly with each other as well. So we're getting hammered for that as well.
Yeah, we got hammered for everything. Jeans too tight. Nah. Nipples pierced. Nah. Haircuts. Nah. Eyebrows done. Nah. It was everything, and it was a tough school back in those days. And we spoke about that with Zach as well. That it has changed a lot. Football has changed, and the way maybe it is. That last generation, it was a tough school, especially when you first came in. And I think we had one day we just, I think, had a light bulb moment, and we were like, man, what are we fucking doing with these nipple piercings? And I remember we just both were just like, we'll take him out.
And it was honestly the worst pain I'd ever been in to get it done. Like that 5-10 seconds, however long it was for them to get that, it was excruciating. And then a year later or whatever it was, we just take it out and it's like, well, literally, what were we thinking? We still, did our hair decent, and we still had I think we had better fashion than half the players in the team. The worst thing was actually, some of the older players that were dressing up wearing jeans and sneakers, and jeans and sneakers are kind of in now, but cool sneakers. But back then, they're wearing proper runners with jeans, and we're getting hammered by these guys.
Yeah, just call Hoffy out if you're going to talk about it.
No, I wasn't actually Hoppy. I was thinking of Dill McAllister, and what a guy he is. He was like a father figure to us, to be honest.
Honestly,
but we're getting hammered. We're getting hammered by him.
Yeah, we did. They looked after us. Look, it's your first time in a professional environment. We had no idea what was going on. 90% of that team were top blokes, and they looked after us. Yes, they took the piss out of us. Yes, they called us pretty boys. We were a little bit kind of out there for younger kids, but they really did try and look after us, and I think they were just looking out for us, and I think they did kind of see something in the two of us that they liked, and a few of them kind of did take us under their wing, like Hoffy and Aziz Bayic.
Yeah, no, it was a really good, and you know what? Back then we were 17. I think I was 16, turning 17. You were 17, so we were so young. But they weren't actually that old either. But we thought they were like these real old guys. Like Aziz was maybe 21, 22. Hoffy was maybe 23, 24. But for us, we were like, these guys are so old.
These
and then
older
you got, like,
boys, yeah.
You know, Fred, who was 35, or Matt Thompson, or Butzer, Clint Bolton, and you're just like, how are we? They're double our age, more than double our age almost. But you go into this environment, and you know they're the nicest guys off the field to you and help you, but on the field it was completely different. But we won't go into that. But the one thing that I noticed, I reckon, being a young player and what we did well was when they asked us to come places. Like we were like, yeah, we'll go. We didn't even drink coffee back then. We hated. We never tasted coffee before. We were going because they were like, oh, do you want to come to this cafe? And we had no idea about a cafe culture or whatever. Like, if we were in Canberra, we were going to McDonald's or Slurpees from 7-Eleven. You know, like we're not going to a cafe and spending our money.
I look back at those years, man. We were living in Melbourne, and I live in Melbourne now, and I'm like, these unbelievable restaurants, unbelievable coffee. Man, we were going to like the local place, like the cheap $10 fucking chicken schnitzel roll around the corner from our house.
Still
when we could have been going
though.
to all of those. Yeah, they were good, but we just had no idea. And I remember like they were like, come, and me and you just looking at each other like, what are we going to order here? I'm not ordering like a coffee. And I remember they were like, we started on hot chocolate. Then after a couple of months, they were like,
I don't reckon they let us get the hot chocolate. I reckon I remember it. Maybe we did at the start. They said, listen, if you're going to sit with us, you're not going to fucking be embarrassing us and drinking a hot chocolate. And I was like, and we were just like, whoa, what do you want us to do? Can we get a milkshake or something then? And it was like, all right.
And they were paying for us. They always paid for us. They never let us shout.
So what are you going to do? Like, as a young player, like, again, like, they were only joking, but when you're a young player, you actually thought they were kind of being serious. So you're like, oh, all right, like, I'll get the mocha then. And we're probably putting 3 sugars in our mocha as well. And it's like half coffee, half hot chocolate. It was not bad, but I wasn't enjoying it.
I didn't like it.
Now if you had a mocha, you were like, oh, this is disgusting. And then I remember after the mocha, like you were saying, we went on to the lattes, and it was like maybe 4 sugars in this latte.
Yes.
And you're still like, oh, this isn't great, but I'll do it. And then obviously, you know, you take it down from 4 to 3 to 2 to 1. And now it's like, yeah, you drink whatever. But it was something I think young players, if they go into that environment, it's just that respect. It doesn't mean that when you're young, you don't have respect. Everybody's respected. And I think now even more so. But, you know, these older players actually can determine a lot about your future, because if they like you as a person and they go that extra mile to help you out, that will help you feel more comfortable in the change rooms. So when you go onto the field, you can express yourself. So I think that's a really, really big thing for young players to try and do. You don't need to go out and drink with them and, you know, party or whatever, but just if they ask you for going for coffee or a lunch, you know, actually try and, I guess, be as close to them as you can, because they're experienced. They know what it's like. They've been in our position, so that they're trying to help you out. And one last story that we'll go into was we were away with the under-20s. We were in Spain at the time. We played, I think you had a pretty good tournament, didn't you?
That was the worst games I've ever played in my whole life. I could not hit a barn door, man. I couldn't hit water if I fell off a boat. That tournament. I was just thinking, get me off the pitch.
And I was flying, you know, here I was playing midfield, had my hair tied up. You know, everyone back then, the younger players had that top knot, just grew it to that length, on fire. Ocon didn't say anything about it. We were buzzing. You know, we're in Spain, what were we, maybe 18 years old, maybe 17. I don't even remember, to be honest. You know, played against Mexico. And then we come back, and we knew when we came back, we're going to Lismore. So from Spain, I don't know where we were in Spain, maybe Valencia we were, I reckon it was. And we had to get to Lismore. So obviously it's not an easy thing. Everybody went their separate ways. But when we landed in Sydney, we needed to get then the flight from Sydney on the little propeller plane to Lismore, and then figure out to get a taxi because the team wasn't even there yet, or they were doing something. So it was a disaster. And we thought, you know what, if we're going to play in this game when we get back, we want to be fit, we want to be fresh, we want to impress. So we sent a message to, I can't remember, was it the physios or someone, or maybe Tom Redden?
Physios or the S&C.
Someone just asking are we going to be involved in the games, thinking we were doing the right thing. And they didn't really reply. I don't even think they replied to it. We were like, all right, so we didn't get the extra massage when we should have just got the extra massage anyway. We ended up, we get back, figure out how to get up. It's not easy when you're that young to it's international.
This was this was like the longest trip ever though. This was like 35 hours or something between waiting, like when we landed in Sydney, because it's obviously Valencia to wherever, Dubai to Sydney. Sydney, we had to wait for ages because how many flights go to bloody Lismore? Get this little plane. Surprised we even made it there. Landed, we're at the airport. There's like 5 people working at this airport. Get outside, it's like a country town, and we're like, have they organised us a car or something? No.
Yeah,
right,
it was actually this amateur, wasn't it? Now that you think about it, they didn't even tell us what to do. We were just like, and it's not like Melbourne or Sydney airport where there's taxis there. We were just like, I think we probably had to order one, or there was probably some random guy that said, yeah, I'll take you. And he charged us, who knows. But we get to the hotel. We're like, all right, we've got 4 or 5 hours, until they came back and we had dinner. So they sent us the schedule. We were in the same room. We fall asleep and we must have forgot to put an alarm on. That's how tight.
No, we did.
We did.
Well. No, we did.
Put the alarm on.
We did. Yeah. I remember dinner was at like 6 p.m. and we set an alarm. I remember we set like 2 or 3 alarms. And we were thinking, no, yeah. And we were just thinking, we were fucked by this stage. We were that tired, that jet lagged. We were like, all right, you know what? And we were trying to fight it off to not sleep. And then after a while, we were like, nah, you know what? We'll just sleep for a little bit. It won't be that bad. We'll get up for dinner. And
miss dinner. No one came and knocked on our room, I don't think, though. So they must have realised, obviously, that they're asleep or whatever. Then we go out, we're in Lismore. We've never been to Lismore before. We go for a walk because it's 10 o'clock at night now. We're like, we're starving. I think the only place open was Domino's. Smash a pizza because what else are we going to eat? It's not like they didn't say here's some leftover food for you. They weren't caring about us. They're probably just ready to roast us for sending that message. Then we get down there the next day. I reckon it was for breakfast. And remember the assistant coach came up. We won't say the coaches, but the assistant coach came up and kind of just said listen, why did you send that message? And we were just like, it's so like sweet, little boys. We're just trying to do the right thing, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, Coach, the boss is really angry because he thinks you wanted to go back to Adelaide and not even come here at all. And we were just shitting our pants and thinking fucking hell, this is backfired. What a disaster. How is that message turned into this? So then we get on the bus to go for training, whatever else. I've got my top knot in thinking this is the first time I was wearing my hair like this. Harry Kuehl was in the team and he was like, I rate that, fucking decent. And I was like, that's big. H rates it, so I'm flying. Get off the bus, out there, for the team warm up. And the boss just looks and says, what is that? And I was just like, what do you mean? And he's like, in your hair. And I was like, and I had never felt so small in my life where I was like, fucking hell. And I just remember going to my hair as slow as it could, just kind of putting my hand through
pulling it out.
Taking it out and just throwing away the headband and thinking, fuck, I might as well just go back to Adelaide because my career here is done. Trained the session, and I don't even know what I did that session, to be honest. I was so rattled and just thinking I'm a good kid. I'm not trying to be a bad person. I didn't think it was that bad, but again, times have changed now and coaches would actually never say anything about that.
No.
But back then it was I think he actually said if you're Ibrahimovic, then you can do it. And I was thinking, well, Harry
honestly,
said he
I agree. I actually agree. Not maybe to that extent, but I do agree. When you're a young boy coming in, just do the stock standard. You don't want to stick out. You want to stick out on the pitch. You want to be a point of difference on the pitch, but off the pitch, just fly under the radar. And you know what? If there's one lesson that we could take away from that whole story, it's that we should have never even sent that text message, because you know what? We're professional footballers, and the minimum requirement as a professional footballer is to get your body prepared in the best possible way you can to be available whenever you're needed. So there was no reason for us to send a text message saying, hey, should we be prepared to train and play in this game when we get back? No, you just prepare. And if you don't play, you don't play. That's out of your control. But what's in your control is how you prepare. And we were just young lads, and we didn't, we weren't trying to do the wrong thing. You weren't trying to be a hero with that haircut, but you got roasted anyway.
And a few of the players afterwards, even all the players were like stunned, like looking like, wow, as if you just said that. And a few of them afterwards like, oh, fuck, I felt so sorry for you. Like, can't believe you said that. And I was thinking, yeah, well, fucking, you can't believe it, but it doesn't make a difference for you, does it? I'm the one that's fucking just copped that. And I think we got back to Melbourne and I just went straight to the barber. Give me a trim. I need it short. I don't want it to go on my eyes. And yeah, it's funny how, times have changed. And I agree with you. But at the same time, you know what? If you've got personality, you got personality. But there's a difference between being a respectful kid and coming in and thinking you own the place and you're 16.
No, that's true.
You know what?
I agree.
If you want to have tattoos, you want to dress, you want to have a nice car, like who am I to judge? I think we're both still a little bit old school. We're probably that last generation where my brain tells me, who does this kid think he is? But then I always am like, what? Let him go. If he's a nice kid, why should I judge him on that? So it's the
most important thing is producing on the pitch. And at the end of the day, I couldn't care if you want to live your life the way you want to live your life, even if I don't 100% agree with it. If you're doing your job, and that's what the main thing is, if you're a footballer, to do your job, then you know what? We shouldn't really say anything. I do sort of agree with that as well.
Yeah. So that's a good learning for young kids out there. And first impressions, the one thing I loved about football that it probably has taught me as well is like, your first impression counts. And I noticed straight away, and PK was really big on this as well, and all the other coaches, but like, you shake your coach's hand in the morning, you go and you say hi to all the other players, you shake their hand. If you didn't shake PK's hand or say good morning, he'd come and like, and Paddy Kisnorbo we're talking about, like, he'd come and probably give you a jab. Like, and it was a bit stupid at the time, but it's a big thing. When I get a young kid and he shakes my hand, I'm like, oh, like he's got a bit of respect. Like, it's a nice thing to do. So I think, if you're going into a change room, go around, introduce yourself, shake everyone's hand, do it every morning, say see you to everyone, and don't have a top knot and you'll be fine.
Exactly right. No, I agree.
But we'll wrap it up there.
Leave it there.
I'll give it a crack. We've got where you can find us on Instagram at Football Friends Pod. On TikTok is Ben and Stef Pod, which is the same as X. And on YouTube, it's Football Friends with Ben and Stef. So I hope I've got them all right, or did I get them wrong, Ben?
You have got them right. But if you guys are listening on Spotify, Apple, head over to YouTube, because Stef's got his absolute shirt wall behind him today, which talk us through the shirts. I think I can recognize most of them. You got Adelaide United up there, Brisbane Roar, Melbourne Heart, NEC, a few Aussie ones in there. What's the blue one?
That's the blue ones. That's the NEC away kit.
All
so
right.
NEC Nijmegen away kit. It's
no Okayama?
The other hook that was up there, like there's an empty space, just fell off, so no good. Couldn't fit one more up. But I've got the Aussie one when I was in the Socceroos, and then over there we've got the under-17 World Cup one when you were sitting back in Canberra doing a whole lot of nothing,
twiddling my thumbs, and the A-League Champions medal there as well. Yeah,
made of gold, pure gold. So this is quite heavy. So
I got two of them.
But do you get one for sitting on the bench the whole season at Melbourne City?
Still got one, mate. It's still, you type my name in,
everyone plays a
A-League champion.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the biggest cliche. Doesn't matter if you played 1 minute every minute or no minutes. Let's be serious. If you're not actually on the field,
bullshit.
You don't have the same feeling. The Western United one means a lot more than the Melbourne City one. Come on.
On a personal note, but of course, I still feel like I was a part of the team. I still feel like I helped the team in another way. Maybe I didn't help on the pitch because I never got there, but I still got there. Like, what are we talking about? I played game. Wasn't as if I sat in the stands all year. But of course, the Western United one is meaningful to me because, you know, I left Melbourne City because I couldn't play there, and then we went and beat them in the final. So of course, you can't get any better revenge than that.
But it's more, I think it's like as a player, you know, you do feel good, and you know, probably when you retire, you'll feel a lot better about it. But at the time, you know, if you're not playing on the field, you know what, like, it just doesn't have the same feeling, I reckon. I don't know. That's just me personally. Like, I feel like, you know, you didn't contribute. You didn't actually do as much. And I know you still need everyone, but, you know, when you're a starting player and you've contributed a lot, it does mean a lot more. So anyway, I'll bring out some different jerseys. I've got other ones that are floating about the place, and I'll change them up for next week. So I'll be here for the next 4 or so episodes.
Yeah. And just before we let you guys go, we've actually got a little giveaway that we're going to be doing in the next probably episode, more than likely next episode, or maybe in the coming episodes. But it's got something to do with the A-Leagues. We've kind of teamed up with the APL and the guys at the A-Leagues, and they've offered us something pretty cool. So I would advise anyone who's listening to this podcast today to definitely follow the socials that Stef read out. Stay up to date, because there's going to be a really, really cool giveaway coming in the next week or so. So stay up to date, give us a follow, and we'll see you guys next week.
Go the Reds.
Oh, Fred.
Fuck you lot, where's the beer?
Ever wanted to become a football agent? The John Viola Academy is an elite training and education program designed by world-class football agents to create world-class football agents. With online courses, personal mentoring and much more, the John Viola Academy provides you with every opportunity needed to achieve your dream career in the beautiful game as a football agent. Head to jvacademy.net/footballfriends or click the link in our show notes to book a demo call with the team and start your journey today.